This is Train to Perform, the undisputed alpha podcast in training, fitness, and sports performance. Here, you'll develop your skills with the cold, hard facts in fitness, sports performance, recovery, and nutrition. Real, tried and true, evidence-based facts that have been proven to move you faster, move you stronger, and move you forward. Now, here's your host of Train to Perform, Julian Sisman.
And welcome back to the Train to Perform podcast. Thank you guys for listening. I appreciate it. Today we have Dr. Joe Eisenmann. He is, there's so much I could talk to him about him. He's a part of a online platform called Volt Athletics. They use AI for, team training, personal training, all sorts of amazing, programs on there for athletes, or if it's just a general population individual or person that wants to stay active, keep working out. They can use the platform. The details are in the show notes. He also is, really involved in the LTAD. So that's long-term athletic development with the NSCA especially. But he also has his own programs currently at University of Nebraska, Kearney. Developing a program for local youth athletes with the university and the undergrad students there. We cover, so much along the lines of LTAD, with, the state of, specialization, the state of the current situation with COVID. We talk about a lot of stuff with youth athletes, maturation, developmental stuff, why coaches should be involved, and honestly, a lot more. I would highly recommend any coach, parent, youth athlete, strength coach to listen to this, because we cover a lot of amazing information. So check it out. Again, please review if you enjoy this podcast, and hope you continue to listen to more. Thank you.
Class. And then I teach an upper level kind of advanced exercise testing and prescription class.
Okay.
But then we're also running a youth athletic development program. It's one that I started when I was at Michigan State, and I'm starting it here as well. So we have student interns. And yeah, the interns were yesterday. We had athletes in from like 4 p.m. until close to 9 o'clock last night. And then this morning we had a VO2 max test like bright and early at 7 a.m. So we were back in the lab, and and then we had more young athletes come in after, in the afternoon again. So they were all like, oh man, I'm so tired. And I'm like, well, if this is going to be your chosen field, you need to understand that you're going to work when the athletes are available, and they're available after school in the evenings. And then sometimes, you have to pull off some early mornings as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what I do right now.
Yeah.
Especially with the whole COVID thing in school, because I'm here in the DC area, and the kids don't go to school till 9. So I'll do like sessions at like 7, 8 o'clock in the morning, and then after school, 3 till like 7, 8. So yeah. I totally get it. It's I've been doing this for 5 or 6 years now. So it's fun though. I mean, I enjoy the process, and I think a lot of the kids do as well. Once they get into it, obviously you know more than I do that at the beginning a lot of the kids are kind of like, it's like so much, because they something that they haven't been around as much, and then once they kind of get into it, it makes it fun. So
yeah. Julian, remind me, have we met before? Are you on on the soccer?
Yeah, I'm the chair of
Yep.
the soccer SIG. Yeah.
That's what I thought. So we've been in SIG meeting
Couple
before.
meetings. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't know if were you at the national here in DC last year? I think it was.
Yeah.
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 Okay. For the NFC. Okay. Yeah. I don't know if I had a conversation with you there, but I know. Yeah, we've been in the the SIG meetings for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean there was never any soccer one, so that's why I kind of brought it back. It's obviously this is a huge sport in this country, so it's been pretty interesting. So we'll see how it pans out as year two comes around. So we had the first sort of like SIG event,
Yep.
which was pretty cool. A lot of people enjoyed it, so it was cool.
Yeah. It was a 1-day event.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was just it was like all day. It was from like 11 to like 6 or something.
Yeah. We did our long-term athletic development SIG did a 4-hour pre-con.
Yeah.
To the virtual national conference as well. So, that we had good numbers as well. I think there were over 200 actually.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see. I mean, people always say that they want to get back, face to face and be able to network at conferences, but it'll be interesting to see, once things open up and you start having the face to face conferences, if people are going to be like, I'm not really sure, because I can get together with, a group of people over Zoom or whatever, and we can have, just as good of exchange as going someplace face to face. So it'll be interesting to see what happens to live conferences.
Yeah, but I think the big thing with the conferences, I mean, and this is my personal opinion, is some of the in-person sort of demos and things like that. It's a little bit more, those things are key to like, especially our field. Like you get more out of it than like looking at a freaking PowerPoint, like, because it's easier for you to take that and say, okay, let me take that with me and then I can implement it tomorrow. Versus like you got to sit there and like read the PowerPoint again, figure out like how you're going to do it. So I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm just saying, like, I think a lot of the in-person stuff is a little bit more, I mean, for some people it might be better for learning too. So I don't know.
Yeah.
So kind of fill me in on like your background, why you got to where you are. I know you're really big into the long-term development, and I am too. I'm not, I'll be the first to say I don't have an undergrad in this. I have got my master's and I'm working on my PhD right now in it. Mm-hmm. But, you kind of like been through this from day one. So I'm just curious to see where you came from. And then obviously I'll kind of go with some of the questions I sent you earlier.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So my background,
mm-hmm.
I grew up in small town, rural North Dakota.
Okay.
Basically got on my bike in the morning, had my baseball glove or a basketball or a football, rode around town looking for kids to play, and just played a lot of unstructured, sport. So I've always had a love for movement and sport and physical activity. And then had an opportunity to go to college and, compete in collegiate baseball, and basically majored in physical education and health. Was preparing to be a physical education teacher and coach, and then kind of started to fall in love with the science part of it. And so really catered my studies more towards physiology and exercise physiology, took up a minor in biology, started really getting interested in human performance kind of from a selfish reason as I was a collegiate athlete.
Yeah.
We didn't have a formal strength and conditioning program. It was a small NAIA school, and this is back in, around 1990. So no formal strength and conditioning program. So it was kind of, you're kind of on your own.
Yeah.
So, so I was taking courses in biomechanics and exercise physiology, and just kind of started designing my own training programs and training myself. And there were a couple of my teammates who were kind of interested in it. And then graduated from undergrad and decided to continue graduate studies in the area. And then, even as a graduate student, I wanted to kind of be a practitioner, but was doing quite well in my studies and kept really having a curiosity towards the scientific aspect of it, and became involved in research. And that kind of led to, pursuing my PhD. All along I was coaching. I've always coached baseball. So I've always had an interest in young people, and decided to do my PhD to focus on pediatric exercise science. So kind of chose to go to a place where, it was very, a renowned program. I could be surrounded by, leading scholars in, children and exercise, pediatric exercise science. So, I went to Michigan State University and studied with Bob Molina, who literally wrote the textbook on growth, maturation, and physical activity. Literally, there's a textbook called Growth, Maturation, and Physical Activity. So no better person to study with than Professor Molina. And obviously, during my PhD studies, continued to get very involved in research activities. And again, still kind of coaching all along. And then finished my PhD and entered academia. And, I've taught in the area of exercise physiology, some strength and conditioning, and a lot of the pediatric exercise science, pediatric exercise physiology, and doing research. Did that for, 10 plus years, and kind of really got the bug to really immerse myself more in youth athletic development and long-term athletic development. So I founded what was called Spartan Performance at Michigan State University, where kids from our mid-Michigan area, they would come into the training center on campus. They would be tested, trained, and then go through sports nutrition and mental skills. So a very holistic model of youth athletic development, health and well-being, and physical fitness as well. And then we had contracts with about 20 different schools, high schools, middle schools, and then club sports in the mid-Michigan area. So on a daily basis, we would serve close to 2,500 athletes. And we did that through a pretty robust internship program. So we would have anywhere between 12 to 20 student interns, upper level undergrad students or graduate students, who would basically be assigned a school or a club, and they would act as the head sport performance specialist, kind of leading those efforts off-site in those schools or clubs. And again, everything from the physical preparation aspect of it to teaching basic sports nutrition, and then some basic mental skills, sports psychology as well, along with some injury prevention measures. So again, very holistic approach. And then we also had 3 registered dietitians on staff and a PhD level sports psychologist. So when we had to refer kids out, if they had, special cases for sports nutrition or sports psychology, we could get individual consultations with professionals in that area. And we were also very closely aligned with sports medicine. So we had great oversight from our sports medicine team, and then also worked closely with sports medicine and physical therapy on return to play protocols as well. So had a great we had a great machine going.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
And then I'm not afraid to admit that I chased bigger logos. And I took a position with USA Football, which is kind of the junior partner, if you will, with the NFL that kind of oversees youth and high school amateur football in the United States as the governing body, much like U.S. soccer, U.S. lacrosse. So I was the head of sport performance and coach education with USA Football for 1 year. It wasn't a good fit for me, so I left. I consulted for a few years in the area of sports science, sport technology, and long-term athletic development, and have recently taken a position at the University of Nebraska-Kearney, where I'm heading up a very similar program. We're just getting started. We're only 8 weeks in, I guess, 2 months in to what we're calling Loper Performance. And I'm using my Spartan Performance model here in Greater Nebraska to serve the needs of rural coaches, athletes, and sport parents in Greater Nebraska. So we're just getting started with those efforts.
That's awesome. You're also, aren't you on working with Volt?
Yeah, so that's one of the sport tech companies.
Okay.
That I do consulting with. I'm actually, my title there is head of sports science.
Okay.
So I consult and provide input into, what's going on in the area of the science of resistance training and other sports science aspects. A little bit of testing and monitoring with them. They also capture a lot of data. It's a cloud-based interface. It's an app. So, of the millions of users across the world, they're always inputting their data on their resistance training programs. So I work closely with their head of data science and kind of doing some research and development kind of behind the scenes to continue to refine some of the machine learning and artificial intelligence algorithms that the Volt strength training programming is based off of.
Yeah, I use it. I use it like every day. It's actually it's a great it's great. I mean, I've been using it on and off for a good 2 years now. Even before they started doing the artificial intelligence and the automatic change of weight or whatever. Yep. It's pretty cool how it's like easy. And there's a guy that I work with. He uses it too. So it's a great app. I'll just saying.
Thanks for that. It's good to hear from another strength and conditioning coach because, sometimes there are strength and conditioning coaches out there who, they kind of poo-poo on it a little bit because it's like, oh, it's taking the jobs of strength coaches, and that's not really the intent of Volt. It's meant to be a tool.
Yes.
And there are cases where there are schools, high schools, clubs, and or individuals who, maybe they can't get to a certified strength and conditioning coach for a lot of different reasons. So it offers them, the opportunity to engage in a well-designed resistance training program that has incredible animations, incredible coaching cues, and a great user interface on it. But even for, a strength and conditioning coach who's managing a lot of teams, it can be a great resource as well. So, instead of plugging all your numbers into an Excel spreadsheet, now you have the app, which has a lot of automation to it. And again, using, some, machine learning, artificial intelligence engines behind it to help you, calculate the appropriate loads as well as the participants are going through their strength training program.
Yeah. I mean, I don't see it as a way that it could really take away. Because, I mean, at the end of the day, it provides hey, this is the program, but there are so many ways to, as a strength coach, even if I was using it with teams, you could change so many things. And there's so many apps out there that do the same thing. I don't see it as as a big, I think it's an easier way to program. So then it's okay, cool. This is the workout. It's a lot easier to see, for the kids to see. And then versus pen and paper where, things can get lost, or, kid doesn't have it, doesn't bring the paper, the workout. or you know, forget it. It's all there. That's how I look at it. I don't look at it as a something that's going to harm the field. I think it's a good advantage for strength coaches for sure.
Yeah.
So cool. Well, I just wanted to kind of get an idea of like your brains behind that. So my first thing is, you know, you talk about unstructured play. Like, why is that important for kids? You know, nowadays, especially with, you know, TV, all these electronics, you know, sort of interrupting their unstructured play, as you mentioned before. Like, why, like, what does it give an advantage to a kid?
Yeah. So it's just the opportunity to express themselves freely, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like we take even really young kids now, 6, 7, 8 years of age, and they go to practice and it's so structured, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's a cone drill set up. Run to this cone, shuffle to that cone, backpedal to this cone. Or, you know, even sport specific stuff. It's very micromanaged and controlled by the coach. So the kid never gets the opportunity to express themselves using their body how they want to, because they're told exactly what to do all the time. And so, you know, for the kid not to be able to express themselves how they want with their body, sometimes, you know, they're not really sure what they can do. And coaches sometimes aren't really sure what kids can do either, because they tell them what to do all the time. And, you know, I don't think the pendulum has to swing one way or the other. You know, I think even for younger kids, you know, we need some structure in practice and training sessions and whatnot, but being able to allow at least some time for that unstructured free play during a quote unquote structured practice is good, you know, again, for both the coach and the kid. You know, that's one aspect of it. The other aspect of it comes down to a parental, a neighborhood, and a societal thing as well. You know, I let off when I talked about when I was growing up in small town North Dakota, and I would just get on my bike. I mean, young age, I would just tell my mom, "Hey, I'm going up to my buddy's house," and I would get on my bike and I would go. And now, you know, depending on where you live in the United States, you know, there's parents have a lot of concerns about safety. And sometimes not for a lot of good reason either, because in some areas there's relatively low crime or whatever, but you know, it's such a fear mongering, you know, culture that we live in now, that a lot of parents just have these concerns about the free play aspect of it. So not allowing kids just to take off and do what they want. But, you know, even within the household and how parents parent and allow kids to engage in, you know, media and sedentary time, and not be like, hey, why don't we go out in the backyard and just rip around and play tag, or, you know, why don't you go kick the ball around in the backyard? There, you know, you have to provide those opportunities as well. And I think sometimes from a parent aspect, it's parents not allowing or providing those opportunities for young kids, you know. And it's actually really interesting because it's become so ingrained now. Even when you allow opportunity for free play, sometimes the kids have no idea what to do because they've never done it before, right? They're so used to a coach showing up saying, I need 3 lines and here's what we're going to do. And this is exactly what we're going to do. And you need to do it exactly how I tell you to do it. Right. So, you know, there's a lot of different levels to that question, into unstructured free play. But I just think, you know, for adults to be a little bit more mindful of it and to provide and allow those opportunities, you know, and just think about school with recess being cut. Like there's an opportunity right there that's just been cut as well. So we need to re-engineer it, you know, back into our society.
Yeah, it's crazy you mentioned that, because I was literally like 3 hours ago having the same conversation with a mom, at our facility and talking about the same thing where we would like when I mean, look, like I'm not even that old, and we're talking like 15, maybe 20 years ago. I was going out. I would literally get on my bike and like go to the park, like whatever. Like no, like, hey mom, I'll be home in like 4 hours. And just ride around, find things to do, whatever. And it was not that long ago. So it's just funny because literally I was telling the mom, I was like 2006 when Facebook came out, like everything went downhill from there. As far as like, kids going outside, kids doing this, kids doing that. And then just enjoying, doing things with their friends. Now it's like all over some type of social media or this or that. And I hate to say it, I mean, it's really disrupted a lot of things. And to also tag along what you said about like the coaching, how coaches coach. I see it all the time. And the worst is soccer. Cause they literally like everything is a line. Kids are standing around. It's never like multiple games going on, even if it's like smaller numbers of kids just like playing. And it's not fun. And I can tell you it's not fun. So I totally agree with you. It's something that needs to be changed. I mean, and I feel like it gets worse every year because especially now with this whole COVID thing, we have a lot of kids that are getting injury after injury because they're going from doing absolutely nothing, sitting in their house all day when technically they should have been outdoors, like playing around, to then just immediately going back to some type of practice or game or whatever. And it's, I mean, I've seen it like torn ACLs, tons of connective tissue or tissue injuries and things like soft tissue injuries, things like that. So, it's not something that is it can be changed, but I think a lot of parental guard needs to be kind of like dropped a little bit and allowing kids to kind of like, like you said, explore.
Yeah. The other interesting thing with parents, in our field in particular, if you allow for unstructured free play as part of your training session and they're watching the training session, they'll come up to you afterwards and like, so what's going on? Why'd you just let the kids run around and do what they wanted? Like, I'm paying you, right? If it's fee for service, I'm paying you to get my kids, faster and stronger and more agile. So I want to see you doing more instruction, like you should be instructing them on sprint mechanics or agility drills, So again, it's the perception of as well, like parents perceive that their kid should be training like an adult. And they don't see, a game of tag, which is a great developer of acceleration and dodging and agility and balance and coordination and all that, right? Probably way better than any drill that we can think of.
Yeah, because it's almost a simulation of what they're going to be doing anyway.
Exactly. But again, it becomes the parent thing as well, where, and sometimes coaches may not opt to do unstructured free play because, we live in a pay to play sport world right now in youth sports. So no matter if it's training, strength and conditioning, or sport specific, more than likely that parent is paying for that kid to be out there. So if they see this unstructured nature of practice, they're going to be frowning upon it perhaps and not understanding, the real purpose and the real benefits that it can provide as well.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. I mean, I like right now, I basically do recess with a bunch of kids like around here. And fortunately, the parents they just drop the kids off. And I almost like just kind of let them play. Like we'll play like different games. Like sometimes we'll do some forms of, you know, speed work, but it's just like, it's more fun. I don't really give them too much instruction. They're middle school kids. Like they're going to have fun regardless of what I say or do. So yeah, I totally agree with you. It's unfortunate because it's the same way with soccer. You know, the more you can simulate the game, the better for the kids. But a lot of coaches, even the coaches, don't do that, and the parents think like there needs to be, oh, he needs to learn the skills and all this and that. It's like, well, you're gonna learn the skills when you play the game, regardless of how you do it. You don't need to stand in a line and go through a bunch of cones for an hour and a half. So yeah, it's I totally agree with you on that one. So, you know, when it comes to long-term athletic development, like, are there key sort of, what are like KPI type things that like should be done? Is there like a certain path for kids, or is it just like, you know, whatever, you know, is sort of, you know, part of the movement, how do I want to say this? The movement sort of like continuum, I guess. Is there any, hey, this person needs to be here at this time, or is it just like whatever they can do as they develop over time or their age? I mean, I know each gender matures at a certain time and every kid grows at a different time. So there's a lot of factors.
So yeah, there are a lot of factors, and I think it's important to point out, like, a lot of people think, you know, long-term athlete development is this rigid model, and it's in fact quite a flexible framework. So yeah, every kid has their individualized path, right? Every person has their individualized path, and really the KPI, you mentioned KPIs, right? The KPI is really what we call physical literacy. Mm-hmm. So, you know, a person's knowledge, understanding, and their motivation to be active, but also being able to have, you know, the movement capabilities. So they're competent in those movement capabilities, and they're also confident in their abilities so that they can lead a physically active life. And so, again, that doesn't sound like competitive athletics at all, but it still is a competitive athletics if you want it to be. Mm-hmm. And again, remember, long-term athlete development, and a lot of people are getting hung up on the word and the nomenclature about athlete or athletic, about, oh, I'm not interested in the long-term athletic development model because you're just serving athletes. Well, we didn't say elite athletes, competitive athletes. Some of us believe everybody's an athlete. Mm-hmm. And everybody should exhibit a certain level of athleticism, because athleticism is merely a combination of health-related fitness and skill-related fitness, right? Like we all should have a acceptable level of body composition, of aerobic fitness, of muscular strength, of muscular power, of flexibility, mobility, and all the other health-related fitness traits. And then also some level of skill-related fitness as well. You know, whether that be speed and agility, or also, you know, the fundamental movement skills as well. You know, the ability to hop, skip, jump, throw, catch, and all the other fundamental movement skills. So we need this movement battery, if you will, so that we can have the opportunities and choices to play and engage in different sports, games, and activities, you know, no matter if those are competitive or recreational, so that we can live a physically active lifestyle. So again, there's this, some people say there's a performance pathway and there's a participation pathway. And sometimes both those pathways overlay each other, and especially at younger ages. You know, we want them on that movement pathway, no matter if it's participation or performance. You know, but we always get caught up with the performance aspect of it. And that's where people really miss the boat with long-term athlete development, right? Because development is a process. It takes time, so winning the 8-year-old city championship, does that matter? Yeah, maybe not so much, right? Did they have fun? Did they enjoy it? Are they developing not only, the physical attributes that we want them to be developing, but this is also a very holistic model as well, right? Are they developing psychosocially? Are they developing emotionally as well and socially? So sport, physical activity is providing that vehicle just to be an overall good and well human being.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
yeah.
I'm not sure if I specifically answered your question.
No.
There's a lot in there, right? In terms of KPIs.
Yeah.
And I think, I think enjoyment and fun.
Yeah.
Is certainly one of them, because if we're not enjoying it and we're not having fun, no matter what it is, we're probably not going to continue our participation in it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And again, when we look at like the performance model, very few of us go on to make a living in sport as an athlete, right? Or as a participant. But we also know what happens when we quit engaging in sport and physical activity. I mean, the evidence is clear in its relationship with health and well-being and with several morbidities and mortalities.
Yeah.
So again, we need to have fun and enjoy it. But again, we need to develop that movement repertoire so that we can have options and opportunities as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think personally, I think the fact that I, at a younger age, participated in a number of different sports. I mean, obviously, when I was growing up, there really wasn't much strength conditioning facilities, that type of business like it is these days wasn't really, like you said, even when you were growing up, like wasn't like the thing to do. Like you kind of like, it was more, really wasn't much of anything, but I think it helped my overall understanding of, being able to do different things when I'm playing different sports, and understanding how to jump. And I still to this day, like, it's just easy to know how to like shoot a basketball, like how to do different things. And kind of leading on to the next question, like, what is your opinion about sort of the specialization when kids are, going into whatever sport? Like, is it, what's your opinion about that?
Yeah. So there's a little bit of evidence for it, but there's also a little bit of personal opinion as well. So, I mean, the evidence is becoming clearer and clearer about, kids who do specialize early. And again, I think we're really clear on that too, right? Is what age are they specializing? So, the studies that are coming out now, like before the age of 12, roughly the age of 12, early specialization. And again, defining specialization as participating in that sport for at least 9 months, right? Solely within that sport, dedicating yourself to that sport at least 9 months of the year. Increased risk of injury, increased risk of burnout, diminished breadth in their motor skill repertoire. So again, the evidence is there for sampling of sports early on before the age of 12. Does that mean if one does specialize before the age of 12 that they're, not, that they're going to drop out, that they are going to have injury, that they're not going to quote unquote make it? Maybe not necessarily. So there's a few things here, and this gets a bit to my personal opinion, but a little bit of insight as well. There's several athletes who they love a sport and they've loved the sport since they've been 7 or 8. They can't wait to get out of bed and go play baseball or basketball or soccer. They just love playing, and they have no interest maybe in playing any other sport. but the type of environment that they're in, you know, in terms of, again, both their home environment and what their parents do, and the pressures that parents may put on the kid and the pressures that coaches may put on kids, is going to have an influence on how that early specialization manifests as well.
Mm-hmm.
So again, you can specialize in soccer and you can go home and you and your dad can go out in the backyard and maybe play a game of tag or play a game of kickball or play a game of dodgeball, where you are getting those other movement skills involved in it and having fun and enjoying things outside of soccer. It's not in a formal manner, right? It's not organized. It's unorganized, unstructured, free play, like we talked about before, right?
Yeah.
So it's that mix. And we see this in some countries, right, where kids play soccer all the time, but they're also ripping around and playing some other things with their friends, tag and climbing on the school monkey bars. So they're getting exposed to some strength activities through, you know, playing on a playground or playing tag in the playground, so on and so forth. But again, they have this joy and love for one single sport.
Mm-hmm.
I witnessed it when I went to the Dominican Republic with baseball. Like, those kids play baseball all the time. By definition, they specialize in baseball. They're not much interested to play anything else. But because, again, you know, cultural, but also, you know, perhaps a lack. Not, and I'm saying, you know, this is in some cases, not in all cases, you know, it can work out okay. Now, again, when we get to ages, you know, 13, 14, 15, and kids start to specialize, you know, again, is it their choice or are there pressures on them? Because that can work against somebody as well. And then the last thing I want to provide some insight on is something that I call the fallacy of the multi-sport athlete. Because we have kids who are 10 years of age and they might play two sports. They might play baseball and hockey. But I can guarantee you that there's a lot of them who play baseball and hockey. I'm just giving you an example of two sports right there. They play both those sports year round.
Mm-hmm.
Because my son did it. He was 9, 10 years of age, and he played baseball and he played hockey. But he played both of them year round. There were many days where we would go from a baseball practice to a hockey practice, from a hockey game to a baseball game, so on and so forth, right? So what we need to think of then is the total volume, right? The total volume of work that they're exposed to, because people will wave the flag and say, "Oh, my kid's a multi-sport athlete. They play two sports." Yeah, but they play both year round. And they're burnt out, right? So it leads to the same thing as early specialization does.
Yeah.
Right? So we have to be careful about how we're defining that and how we're thinking about it as well. And again, I'm not one to be a anti-sport specialization. I just think we have to think of all the caveats that come along with it as well.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because in certain, I think these are rare. In certain circumstances, it can play out okay. But again, there has to be a lot of enjoyment. It has to be pressure-free from the kid. They have to be exposed to other things, and, you know, and not only movement, but educational and social things as well.
Yeah.
You know, but again, most of the time what we see is early sport specialization, one sport, that's all you do. There's a lot of pressure. You may neglect, you know, friendships and social opportunities, and sometimes neglect educational things as well. And this doesn't bode very well for developing an overall holistic human being, does it?
No.
And that's when we get into trouble.
Yeah. I agree. I never thought of it that way that you were talking about with your son, that whole like total volume of, you know, play every single day. I mean, I'm sure it was 7 days a week at some point.
Yeah. And so, and you know, there's going to be people who listen to this and they're like, "Joe, how can you say that? You know better than that." But again, you know, it's tough to be a sport parent.
Yeah.
You know,
No, I mean, I don't doubt it.
Yeah. I mean, I'm very well educated on this topic, you know, but still, like, I was a sport parent like all the other sport parents were. And so, you know, there's peer aspects, there's social aspects, you know, we kept good tabs on things, you know, his well-being and whatnot, and made sure that he was still having fun and enjoying himself. But, you know, you start to get, you start to get carried away and sucked into the vortex of the youth sport culture that is what we have in America. So it's challenging.
Because everybody, it's like a status of like, if my kid is doing this much and he's getting, and they think it's like the more they do, the better they are. But
yeah,
I mean, and you and I both know that, you know, that there's only, it gets to a point where there's diminishing returns on the amount of practice, the amount of, you know, going from one practice to another. I mean, like you said, I see it all the time. I hear about it all the time. And I tell kids, you know, to really, really focus on, you know, one practice a day if they can, especially if it's like, if they're doing something, you know, 7 days a week, or like if you're going to do 2 practices, make sure like the next day you're not doing anything, or maybe 1 practice, not 2, like multiple times a week, because you're just gonna, there's gonna be only, your body's gonna get you to a certain point and it's gonna be like, okay, I can't do anything anymore.
Yeah. So Julian, to add to that, just a couple of other things. So I mentioned Spartan Performance, where kids would come into the training center, and the first thing that we would do is we had an orientation meeting, and they filled out a training log. And the training log asked about all of their activities. So what's the frequency of these activities on a weekly basis? What's the intensity and the duration of these activities on a daily basis? So we would turn people away, right? We would tell parents, this is not a good option for you right now, because instead of training your kid, we may overtrain your kid just by having them come here, you know. But this also gets to the business of youth sports. And we have all these private facilities, and a lot of these private facilities drive this specialization, don't they? Because they have to keep the lights on.
Yep.
If I own a baseball academy and we play a spring season and a summer season, well, of course we have to have fall ball, right? So you got to play fall ball, because if you don't play fall ball, you're probably not going to play on our summer travel team next summer. And then what happens in the winter? Oh, we have hitting league and you need some private instruction. So they almost force the hand. And I was alluding to the difficulties of being a sport parent, and you get, like I said, sucked into the youth sport vortex a little bit by some of these private facilities, because it's their business, you know. So you always have to kind of question, you know, when they have on their website, this is about development. You know, you really have to say, is this really about development? You know, and I understand, because, you know, of the capitalistic landscape that we're in. These people have to keep their lights on, but you know, again, they also need to be thoughtful about the burnout aspect of it, the other opportunities that they're not affording this young person as well, like other sports, and truly being a multi-sport athlete as well. And you know, it can be a bit unique to the United States just because of how our sport system is set up, you know, whereas in Europe they have sport clubs, so they might have under one roof multiple sports. And I know there's, you know, some talk in some smaller, or in some communities in the US where they want to kind of go to that model, which would be really unique as well.
So kind of question I have, are you able to use like your sports science background with the LTAD, or is there, like, did that not really blend together?
Oh, it goes hand in hand, right?
Okay.
I mean, we always have to look at the evidence. You know, if we think about sports science being the study and the application of, you know, scientific principles, you know, within biomechanics, exercise physiology, sports psychology, and all the other domains of sports science. So we're applying that, right, to the development of young people as they go through this process. And specifically like with the physical development. So, you know, understanding growth and maturation and being able to apply those principles and looking at, you know, the monitoring of growth and maturation of the young person so that we can look at, you know, the outcomes, the physical outcomes, and how they're changing, you know, with age, with the maturity process, with puberty, so on and so forth, maybe changing training programs based on where they're at within their journey of growth and maturation as well. So yeah, there's a lot of crossover and application of sports science into long-term athlete development.
So are you able to use that data for, like, you know, kids that are coming through, and then from, you know, kids that are like obviously hitting certain levels, like, oh, you're like, oh, from past, you know, experience or from past stuff that we have, you know, this person could be here or, you know, within this range, I guess you could say. Yeah.
So, you know, what's critical for us when a kid enters our program is to get, you know, a routine battery, and that routine battery includes, you know, obviously height and weight, body composition. And if we continue to monitor that over time, we can get indicators of, you know, where they're at, you know, within, you know, the maturity spectrum, but also getting some of those physical performance outputs as well and how they're changing. So it's part of a monitoring system, but it also allows for research as well. It's what I call the living lab example. Like,
yeah, that's awesome.
You know, sometimes we just set up these natural experiments of, you know, program A versus program B. Within our programs, it depends on the time and how many kids are enrolled, and you know, different schools or clubs that we're working with as well. But yeah, that can give us, you know, insight into the effectiveness of programs at different ages and at different stages of maturation as well. You know, there's a hot topic is, you know, windows of opportunity, right? Like, oh, we must train speed at this age. We must train agility. We must train strength or power. So, not much of that is founded on really sound science. And, you know, it's important to train all facets of athleticism across the entire childhood and adolescent spectrum. Obviously, you can train, you know, we're not going to be looking at training muscular hypertrophy at ages 6, 7, and 8 because we know, you know, based on their biology and physiology, that's probably not going to happen. Right. That's kind of sometimes where the misnomer of, you know, windows of opportunity happens, is because, you know, a lot of the talk is around that age of peak height velocity and the adolescent growth spurt, where kids, if they train or not, are going to have huge gains, you know, dramatic gains in a lot of those physical performance outputs just because of normal growth and maturation, you know. So
talking about growth and maturation, do you think, or do you see a lot of sport coaches now trying to get more involved and trying to understand the whole process, you know, of a kid, you know, going through that process?
Yeah.
Do you think it's helpful? And is it something that's becoming more, you know, seen more?
I'm going to be frank, Julian. In this country, no. In the rest of the world, especially in England, you know, in the Premier League and the academy system, and in other European, especially academy systems, yes. Many of the strength and conditioning coaches and sports scientists in European soccer academies and even rugby academies are very switched on, as they say. to growth and maturation, because they see its application and better understanding, how these physical performance outputs, and what I mean by physical performance outputs, speed, agility, strength, power, so on and so forth, how they're changing naturally and how they're changing with training, and they're better able to communicate, those changes to the athlete, to the coaches, and to the parents. And also around the adolescent growth spurt, like when is that going to occur? So taking these routine measures of height and weight and calculating growth rates and or predicting the age at peak height velocity or percent predicted height, adult height, and using those as indicators of maturity status, because there's, now a handful of studies that are indicating that the adolescent growth spurt is kids who are going through the growth spurt are at an increased risk for injury, because we're having some differential growth between, tendon, bone and muscle. And then, there's this interest in this concept of adolescent awkwardness as well. And so being able to identify like when that kid is about to go through the growth spurt, right? So again, instead of eyeballing it and saying, oh, they look like it, no, like getting numbers and actually calculating the growth rates and or, like I said, using some of the, equations like the maturity offset or the Camus-Roach to estimate predicted adult height, and using those as maturity indicators to give you that insight of, oh yeah, they're about ready to take off for their growth spurt, or they're, in their growth spurt, they're circa PHV, and be able to kind of retrain some of those fundamental movement skills, perhaps in some of those kids who may be experiencing, adolescent awkwardness. So, most of the people who follow and like some of the stuff that I post on social media and or email me are from European soccer or rugby academies, and I'm developing some really nice collaborations. And for some reason, there's not as much interest in the United States around this topic.
It's interesting. And that's all across the board on all sports.
Yeah, I think so for the most part. Yeah. Yeah. So I've been involved with a colleague in the UK. We actually did our PhD together, Dr. Sean Cumming, and there's this concept of biobanding, which you're probably familiar with because you're a soccer guy, right? So in the Premier League academies in particular, they're doing these bio-banded events. So instead of age group events, the U12 kids, the U14 kids or whatever, they're getting a maturity indicator. So the early maturing boys are playing against the early maturing boys. The late maturing boys are playing against the late maturing boys, right? Because when you mix a group of 13-year-old boys together, you have early, average, and late matures, and you have the early matures who are big and strong and fast, who just bull everybody over. And they may not have to rely on their technical or tactical ability because they rely on their physical ability, right? And then you have the late matures who they may be highly skilled, right? They have great technical and tactical skills, but physically they're not strong enough. They're not fast enough. They get pushed off the ball, whatever it may be. Now all of a sudden they start playing, with kids their same biological age, right? Now all of a sudden they level the playing field, so to speak. And there have been, again, a handful of studies that have been published on this with focus groups and semi-structured interviews with the kids, and the kids love it.
No, that's smart.
Yeah. And again, people will poo-poo on this idea too, because they're like, well, that's just not the way it works. And, when they get older, they're going to be competing against their age-related peers. Well, yeah, they are, but at a younger age, right? Let's not weed out some of those late maturing boys in particular who are highly skilled, but they get cut because they're not strong and fast and big and powerful, so on and so forth. So biobanding isn't a all the time thing. It's not like you use it all the time. Yeah. But you can use it for selection. You can use it for competition, a jamboree on a weekend. Some of the clubs are using it. They have a once a week, they're having bio-banded practices. And then the strength and conditioning staff, they're using it as well. right? A group of 13-year-old boys or whatever come into the gym, and the early maturing boys who now might be ready for some hypertrophic resistance training, right? In terms of set rep schemes and things like that, they can be put on a different program than the later maturers. So, again, understanding growth and maturation, if you're working with young athletes, is vital.
Yeah.
You know, like I always say, first understand the system, right? And the system is growth and maturation. And if you don't understand the system, you're not going to understand your training methodology and the responses to training that you're getting.
Yep.
Right? Because they can be masked with growth and maturation, right? You're claiming all these great gains in strength. And I'm looking at your data and I'm saying, yeah, that kid just grew. They were going to get stronger no matter what. It's not really your training program why they got stronger.
Yeah.
Right? So that's why understanding growth and maturation is so key. And the last thing I'm going to leave you with, and then I want to hear some of your thoughts and maybe go on to the next question because I've been talking a lot here, but and I'm guilty of this as well because I was trained in physical and biological growth and maturation. But understanding cognitive and psychosocial development of these kids is so important as well, right? I mean, when kids come in, we don't train them from the neck down, right? Like they have a head on top of their on top of their shoulders with this brain in it, and it affects their behavior and their psychosocial interactions and everything, which can impact your training sessions as well.
Yes.
So also understanding, you know, that psychosocial, cognitive, emotional development alongside the physical development is essential.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I was, talking about that. I mean, I was training this girl yesterday, and I'm the type of person that I can like read you. Like, I'm not going to sit here and tell you I'm a mind reader, but just body language, just the way that she was sort of expressing herself, you can tell there's something wrong, and you can, and just from that, like, like at that time, I'm like trying to figure out, okay, something's wrong. I'm going to have to like figure out a session for her now because what I have is not going to work. So it's one of those things where you just got to like, quickly adapt to the situation. And I totally agree with you on the whole, also the maturation of younger kids. It's huge in soccer. It's a little, I don't know how much of a difference it is in like other sports, but I'm around a lot of soccer players, and I have this kid that I train that at 13 years old, he's easily 6 foot. 13 or 14 years old, he's 6 foot already. And I'm like Jesus. And so and then I have another kid that's same team, and he's like to his thigh, like, or his waist. So it's like, and that's the perfect example of what you're saying of, the biological age of those kids. Like I could probably ask the one kid that's taller, when were you born? He's probably born in the early half of the year versus the other kid where he's born in the later half of the year. So, all that. And and then on top of that, there is a bunch of research I've read before about in Canada what they do with hockey players, where they say that most hockey players that are born in like first quarter. You're more than likely to be a pro hockey player versus kids that are born in the last quarter or last half of the year.
Yeah.
So it's huge. And as a soccer coach, dealing with that same situation, it's hard because, you don't have as much of the tools that you're talking about in Europe, where, you can figure out, hey, these kids can be over here and train, these kids over here because they're older or younger. It's, you got to put it all together, but you got to figure out a way to make everyone have a successful session. So.
Yeah.
And that's the goal. Like, you try to figure out at the beginning of practice, like, how's everybody feeling, kind of get a vibe of like what's going on, how their day is. And then you could kind of go from there. That's kind of like, I don't know, I've learned from other strength coaches, other soccer coaches. And it helps. You just, before you even start off, you try to get a vibe of like how everybody's doing that day. And I think that to me, it's a huge game changer.
It's part of the art of coaching, right?
Yeah, exactly. So just kind of finish off here. I mean, you've been around for a while. You work with a lot of sports performance coaches. What would you suggest to, future, people that listen to this that are sports performance coaches and the ones that are, up and coming, what kind of suggestions to help them be, successful and keep helping these, youth athletes, get what they need at the, need and want at the same time?
I'm going to start with the up and coming coaches.
Mm-hmm.
We're about 8 weeks into the semester now. So early on in the semester, I spoke to all of the students in my classes and also to a larger group of students who are in our exercise science club about this same thing. And I talked about education and experience. Like, if you're an up and coming, you're an undergraduate student right now and you want to get into the field,
Mm-hmm.
like, you have to do well and you have to understand the content. You have to have a good education,
Mm-hmm.
but you also have to get out of the classroom and out of the textbook, and you have to gain hands-on practical experience. The classroom knowledge and the lessons in class are going to be much more meaningful. If you have that practical experience, they're going to make a lot more sense. You're going to be able to connect. You're going to be able to connect to it better. And also some of the stuff that you've already learned, once you apply, it's going to make a lot more sense as well. But at the end of the day, we both know that you can have a 4.0 GPA, but if you don't have hands-on practical skills, you're not going to be a very good coach or sports scientist, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, you can't just be able to take exams and ace exams or standardized tests or certification exams, right? Or whatever, just because you have CSCS behind your name or whatever certification it is. It doesn't mean that you're a good coach. It just means that you have a bachelor's degree, you have a master's degree, you passed the coursework for it, you defended your thesis, or you passed the certification exam. But again, having that hands-on practical experience is so, so vital, to being what we would really say would be a qualified and experienced professional.
Mm-hmm.
So again, sometimes sacrificing the GPA, maybe instead of having a 3.8, maybe you have a 3.3 GPA.
Mm-hmm.
But, it suffered because you were out in the trenches getting hands-on practical experience. And that's going to go a long way. I think that's one thing that I think all young people should have an understanding if they want to pursue a career in this field. The second thing is people skills. And that kind of goes hand in hand with hands-on practical experience, right? Like, being able to communicate effectively, understanding human interactions, is so important. And again, having a 4.0 GPA, but not being able to have a conversation with people or to explain something, having a very low social or emotional intelligence score, that's not going to bode well either, right? So really honing your people skills, being able to read and understand people, kind of the psychology and the behavior of people, understanding ego, your ego and other people's ego, learning how to negotiate, sometimes persuade people. Just all of those human interaction and communication skills and people skills are so, so vital, really vital, Julian. And, I've been on several other podcasts, and I admit it, like up until 5 to 8 years ago, I had really, really poor people skills, And I've really taken it upon myself in the last 5 to 8 years to really improve upon that. And I keep improving upon that as well.
Yeah.
Because relationships, they can make or break deals, right? They can make or break careers. They can make or break jobs. They can make or break job interviews, so on and so forth. And, coaching and sports science, it's a people business. So you have to be able to have those people skills, and human communication and interaction skills are so important.
Yeah.
But again, those are things that you don't learn in textbooks and in the classroom or watching videos or listening to podcasts. Those are things that you learn by being around people and just, having conversations with them, and also just, understanding yourself as well as a human, your personality traits and how you react to situations. Being able to be comfortable being uncomfortable, as we say, and part of that is being evaluated and criticized as well as you learn and grow. How to communicate with individuals. I think both of those things, the practical hands-on experience and the people skills, are really, really important. With that said, I'm going to go back. You still have to have some content knowledge, man.
Yeah.
Right? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You can know how to do things. You also need to understand why you're doing things.
Yes. Yeah.
So I'm not saying I have to be careful in my words. Like, sacrifice your GPA, sacrifice your content knowledge, maybe a little bit in lieu of those practical and people skills, but it doesn't mean ignore it. I'm not saying that. I want to be really clear on that. Don't ignore it.
Yeah, really, it's a combination.
Yeah, really dig into the content, but along the way you have to be getting that practical experience and learning how to interact with people. So that's kind of for the newcomers. I think some of those lessons can be for other young professionals who. Go ahead.
One more thing on the newcomers. Do you, because you deal with a lot of undergrad, do you suggest to them that, obviously internship, things like that, but, if they're, at that, if you're an undergrad at that age, you can get kind of certified. Do you ever suggest to get a job, like maybe get a certification, get a job in, a local gym, whatever? Or is it, because they have sort of an access with you now, they can do what they do with you?
Yeah. So, the students who are, again, we're just getting started here, but we're developing a program where undergraduates can basically do almost like an apprenticeship with us.
Okay.
And it's kind of a leveled apprenticeship.
Okay.
Where early on they're just observing, they might be doing some readings, they're sitting in on seminars, they're kind of learning about the field, and then they're gonna have to demonstrate, right, some competency before I allow them to train athletes. Someone's not just gonna walk in and say, "Oh, I'm interested in this," and I'm gonna say, "Okay, you're in charge of that station. Go coach them up on this agility drill or whatever it is." That's not gonna happen.
Yeah. Okay.
I want you to be around, show some competency, start to get an understanding of the whys of what we're doing, but the hows of what we're doing. And we'll do some clinicking with them as well. And, a lot of questioning. Hey, what'd you see? What do you think went well? What do you think went bad? What would you improve upon? So just trying to help them along in learning and understanding, and then, getting them involved, bit by bit until finally that, okay, I'm ready to stand in front of a group of 20 young athletes and run the show. That's where I want them to be before they graduate, because too often we don't allow that in our undergraduate education programs. You graduate with a degree and you go for an interview and they ask you, "So tell me about your experiences." And you're like, I have a 4.0 GPA. I did really well in all my classes, but I don't have that much experience. No, go to an interview and be able to say, I I interned or I volunteered for 2 or 3 years, and again, it's more than a semester.
Mm-hmm.
And I tell this to undergrads all the time as well. Like, I'm just going to use the example of taking blood pressure I'm going to use that example. So teach a kid how to take a blood pressure. They come into the lab, they bring their buddy in, they pump the blood pressure cuff up. They take about 5 blood pressures and then they call it good. I'm done. They walk out of the lab. No, you're not an expert yet, right? Like, you got to take hundreds, if not thousands of blood pressures to really get it. And that's no different than anything else as well,
those
right?
reps. Yeah.
Yeah. So you can't just like I'm teaching a strength and conditioning, an implementation of strength and conditioning class right now. So we did 1 week of speed, 1 week of agility, 1 week of plyometrics, and then we're going to do 3 or 4 weeks of resistance training. But again, once you finish the class, that doesn't mean you're an expert, right? That means I had the first exposure, but you got to keep getting those repetitions and that experience in, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I tell the students, it's just like motor learning. When you have an athlete and you're wanting that athlete to learn a new skill, squat, lunge, throw a baseball, kick a soccer ball, whatever the skill is, it takes a lot of repetitions. For you to become an expert performance and master this coaching skill, you need lots of repetitions as well.
Mm-hmm.
It can't just be, oh, I sat in on 2 sessions and I delivered 1 session. No, it's got to be multiple, right? To really hone those skills. And I think in different environments, it becomes important as well.
Yeah, 100%. Because, you're going to have, different personalities, and even different sports, different areas in the area that you're in, different types of people. So, everybody learns a different way. Everybody interacts a different way. So it's, I definitely agree with that. Just, being able to, when I got into it, it's very different. It was more of like, it was kind of very similar. It was I just showed up to some sessions, watched, observed for like multiple weeks, and didn't get paid. I was just driving out there, 30, 40 minutes away from where I lived, for almost a whole summer. I didn't do any, I helped out a little bit, like setup, but other than that, it was observation, just learning like why. And, from there, it was just kind of next step was another company that I did it at. And then they kind of hired me because they needed coaches, but that was after like, months of reps, for just doing for free. I wasn't getting paid for anything.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
I totally agree with you. And I tell that to kids that ask me about the profession, and then, kids that, I've had a couple of interns, and just kids that are like in it, that are at other schools that are in exercise science, that are interested in, working and doing that. I'm like, look, man, you're going to gain a lot of knowledge, but you have to get the reps. Like, if you don't get those reps, you're not going to get much out of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
and Julian, if I could leave, one thing for maybe the younger professionals, right? So like, even for yourself, self-evaluation, right? Like, thinking about your practice as well. Like, just don't go out and coach, but be reflective as well, right? And be evaluated by, other peers, other mentors. Have them come and watch sessions and be able to have some thick skin. I mean, remember, it's not a personal attack, right? Like, let's have some constructive criticism and be able to take that constructive criticism and grow. So, after your own sessions, just sit and say, okay, what went well? What do I want to improve? And go through some self-evaluation and reflection.
Sorry about that. Hello?
Hey, how are you?
That was my bad.
Yeah, it's okay.
So you were saying they're reflective. So
Yeah, so I think for young coaches to be able to, after a training session,
yeah.
just be reflective of your practice and self-evaluate yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Like we can't think like, okay, I've gotten reps in, I'm feeling pretty good about myself, I'm confident.
Mm-hmm.
I have this. Like, you need to keep growing and be reflective in your practice. Like, what is going well? What do I need to improve upon? Have some self-evaluation in there, but also reach out to, mentors and peers and maybe have them observe you. And that's going to take some thick skin once in a while, right? Because like, just say, hey, I want you, like I tell my colleagues this. I just told one of my colleagues today this because they came and evaluated my teaching. I said, hey, I have thick skin. Like, let me know, man. Like, just don't say, oh, that was really good. Like, no, I have thick skin. I want to know, like, tell me 2 things I could do to improve. I don't know what I want to, I don't want to know what I did right. I want you to tell me 2 things that I can do to improve. Tell me anything. I don't care what it is. I have thick skin, And so you have to be able to accept that constructive criticism as well to keep growing and improving.
Makes sense. Yeah, I mean, I agree with you 100%. That's the only way you get a little bit better at, every time. If you're able to, but I feel like a lot of coaches just can't take that.
Yeah.
the constructive criticism.
Yeah.
But I personally think it's important. It's important.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Dr. Joe. Appreciate it. I will put it, where people can connect with you, and learn more about the long-term athletic development and get some more information, because to me it's very important for the future of the kids in this country. So that's why I try to get as many people that are kind of like in it on my podcast to continue to educate the people that listen to this, and parents that I refer to these conversations that I have with people like you. So
great. Yeah,
appreciate it,
Julian. Thanks for the conversation and taking the time to listen to my story a little bit.
Thanks for listening to Train to Perform with Julian Sisman. Learn how you can work with Julian in a personal training session, either online or in person, at prepareforperformance.com. And follow on social media for more tips on training, fitness, and sports performance. On Twitter @JSisman_PFP and Instagram @prepareforperformance.